She was paid to ruin his blind date, but the single dad CEO millionaire fell in love instead. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. But little did she know, this job would change her life forever and his. Let's go back to our main character, Anna. Anna had always been a woman of practicality, someone who made decisions based on what was necessary. So, when she was approached with a job offer to ruin a blind date, she didn't hesitate. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid well, and in her situation, that was all that mattered. She needed the money. Her bills had piled up, and the rent was long overdue. She was scraping by, just managing to keep her head above water. The opportunity presented itself at the perfect time. The man she was hired to disrupt was none other than William Harding, a successful CEO and single father. His reputation as a cold, calculated businessman was well known, and she had no illusions about his character. She was to make sure that his blind date went horribly wrong. She didn't need to know anything more about him. Just follow the instructions. As Anna arrived at the upscale restaurant, she looked at the invitation again. It was simple. Ruin the evening, make him regret showing up, and leave him embarrassed. She wasn't about to back out now, not when the money was so tempting. The restaurant was fancy, the kind of place she would never normally step into. The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware filled the air. It was all so polished, so pristine. She stood at the entrance for a moment, feeling out of place, her second-hand dress and worn-out shoes a stark contrast to the polished patrons around her. She could feel the weight of her nerves pressing against her chest as she scanned the room. And then, she saw him. William Harding. He was seated at a corner table, his back straight, his demeanor as controlled as she had heard. His sharp suit and piercing gaze made it clear that he was used to being in charge. She walked over, her heart racing as she approached the table. "Hi, you must be William," she said with a bright, almost too bright smile. He looked up, his expression unreadable for a moment. No, I'm not," he said, his voice calm, almost amused. Confused, she glanced down at the table, checking the seating card. Her stomach sank. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I must have gotten the table wrong." Her face burned with embarrassment, but he didn't seem to mind. In fact, he just smiled and gestured for her to sit. "It's okay," he said. "Blind dates can be tricky." She hesitated but took the seat, deciding to play it off as a harmless mistake. As they started talking, she couldn't help but notice how different he was from the cold, distant man she had imagined. He was quiet, sure, but there was something about the way he listened, the way he smiled, something that made her feel comfortable, like she could just be herself. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily. She talked about her struggles, about her work as a waitress, and her dream of one day opening a small art gallery. He asked questions, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt like someone was actually listening to her. She could tell he wasn't like the other men she'd encountered. But she reminded herself, he was just another rich businessman, probably looking for a trophy wife. That was all. There was no need to get carried away. The evening was pleasant enough, and when the real date arrived, Kevin, the man she had meant to meet, she excused herself quickly, her cheeks still flushed from the awkward mix-up. But as she made her way to the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. She had expected the evening to be just another job, but now, she felt something more. She tried to push it away, but the thought lingered. As she left the restaurant, she glanced back. William was still sitting there, alone now, looking out the window. For a split second, their eyes met across the room, and for reasons she couldn't explain, her heart skipped a beat. Little did she know, this mistake would be the beginning of a life-changing journey for both of them. I know this may sound strange, but Anna couldn't stop thinking about William Harding. It was ridiculous. After all, he was a millionaire CEO with a life far beyond anything she could ever dream of. She had made a mistake. That was it. She had met a man, thought he was someone else, and now, she was feeling something she shouldn't have. Still, there was something about him, something genuine, something real, that stayed with her. It wasn't supposed to be this way. She was supposed to ruin the date, walk away, and get paid. That was the deal. But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment, she couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if she had just stayed. If she had given him a chance. The next morning, Anna tried to push the thoughts out of her mind as she got ready for her shift at the diner. The day was just like any other, rushed, tiring, and filled with the constant hum of the coffee machine and the clinking of dishes. But even as she poured coffee into a mug for a customer, her mind kept drifting back to that night. The way William had looked at her across the table, his smile softening when she shared her dreams. He was supposed to be a cold, detached businessman, yet she had seen a side of him no one else had. She hadn't imagined it, had she? No. He had looked at her like she mattered. It was strange. Maybe it was just a moment of weakness on his part, something he didn't even realize. But what if it was something more? What if there was a chance, however small, that she could make a connection with him? She pushed the thought aside as she wiped down the counter. She didn't have time for daydreams. She had bills to pay and a life to manage. Still, the thought of William Harding lingered, and she found herself wondering if she might see him again. She tried to shake it off, focusing on the task at hand, but the nagging feeling wouldn't leave. Hours passed, and Anna tried her best to keep herself busy. By the end of her shift, she was exhausted. As she was locking up the diner, her phone buzzed in. Her pocket. She pulled it out, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw the message. It was from an unknown number. Hey, this is William Harding. We met last night. I wanted to apologize for the mix-up. I hope I didn't make things too uncomfortable. If you're free, I'd love to grab coffee sometime and talk more. Anna froze, her breath catching in her throat. Was this real? She had imagined it 100 times, but now that it was happening, she didn't know what to do. She stood there for a moment, staring at the screen, before she replied. I'd like that. Coffee sounds good. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. A few moments later, a reply came through. Great. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 10 a.m. Anna felt her heart race as she read the message. This was happening. She was meeting him again. It didn't make sense. It wasn't part of the plan. But now, she couldn't back out. She had to see where this went. The next morning, she found herself standing outside her apartment building, waiting for William's car. When it pulled up, she felt a jolt of nervousness shoot through her. He was wearing a casual jacket and a warm smile, his demeanor far more relaxed than the polished CEO persona she had imagined. Hey, he said, opening the door for her. Ready to grab that coffee? Anna nodded, trying to steady her breath. Yeah, let's go. As they drove to the cafe, the conversation flowed easily. William was different than she expected. He wasn't just the businessman she had seen from a distance. He was warm, funny, and surprisingly easy to talk to. Anna found herself laughing, the tension from their first meeting slowly melting away. They talked about everything. Her dreams of opening an art studio, his struggles with the pressures of being a CEO, his love for art despite being too busy to ever appreciate it. She learned that he wasn't as cold as he seemed. In fact, he was just as vulnerable as anyone else, but his world didn't allow for any softness. Anna couldn't help but feel a pull toward him. It was like seeing the real William Harding for the first time, and it made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was something real between them. When the coffee was finished, and they sat in comfortable silence, William broke the quiet. You know, he said, his voice low, I've been thinking about last night. I'm sorry I didn't clear things up sooner. I should have told you the truth. I just didn't expect things to go the way they did. Anna turned to him, searching his face. He seemed sincere. It's okay, she said quietly. I wasn't sure what to expect either. They shared a moment of understanding, one that was both unspoken and real. Maybe we should start over, he suggested. Anna smiled, the warmth spreading through her chest. Yeah, she said softly. I think that sounds like a good idea. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt like something might actually work out. Maybe, just maybe, this blind date mix-up could lead to something more. Something real. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Anna. She had agreed to meet William Harding again. But now, she couldn't help but feel a strange sense of uncertainty. It was one thing to be nervous about a blind date gone wrong, but it was another thing entirely to feel like something real was beginning to develop. She had never imagined that meeting someone by mistake would turn into something that felt so genuine, and yet, here she was, unsure of what exactly she was feeling. She had spent so many years guarding her heart, never letting anyone get too close. But with William, it was different. They had been talking almost every day since their coffee date. She had told him about her hopes, her dreams, even her struggles, and he had listened, really listened. There were no pretensions, no walls between them. It felt easy, in a way she had never experienced before. But as much as she liked him, as much as she wanted to believe in this connection, there was still a part of her that held back. She knew who William Harding was, a successful CEO, a powerful man in the business world. He had everything she could ever dream of, and well, she had nothing. She wasn't wealthy, she didn't come from money, and she didn't have the polished image of the women he probably dated. She worked as a waitress, trying to make ends meet while dreaming of a future that seemed just out of reach. And that's why, when William invited her to his charity gala, she almost backed out. The invitation felt too much like a fairy tale, something that couldn't possibly happen to someone like her. What would she even wear? What would people think of her, a girl from the diner, walking into an event like that? But William insisted, telling her he wanted her to come, that she deserved to be there. So, with a mix of excitement and nerves, she agreed. The night of the gala arrived, and Anna stood in front of her mirror, unsure of how to even begin. Her simple dress, the one she had bought on sale months ago, felt like it would never be enough. She had no designer clothes, no fancy shoes, nothing that could help her fit in with the glamorous crowd she was about to enter. But William had made it clear he wanted her there, so she tried her best to shake off her doubts. When she arrived at the venue, she was immediately struck by the grandeur of the place. The massive chandeliers, the expensive decorations, the beautifully dressed people mingling and laughing. She felt completely out of place, but she reminded herself why she was there. William had invited her, and she was going to make the most of it. As soon as she walked in, she saw him. William was standing across the room, talking to some business associates, but the moment he saw her, his eyes lit up. He excused himself and walked toward her, his smile warm and welcoming. "Anna, I'm so glad you could make it," he said, taking her hand and leading her into the crowd. She smiled nervously, feeling the eyes of the other guests on her, but William's presence made her feel like she wasn't alone. He introduced her to a few of his colleagues, and although she felt a little out of place at first, she soon found herself laughing and enjoying the conversation. William had a way of making everyone feel comfortable, and it wasn't long before Anna felt like she belonged, at least in his company. As the night went on, William and Anna found themselves talking in a quiet corner of the room, away from the noise of the gala. "I'm really glad you came tonight," William said, his voice soft. "I know this is all a little overwhelming, but I want you to know that I'm happy. You're here with me." Anna looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. There was something in his eyes, something sincere, that made her feel like this wasn't just another one of his charity events. "I'm glad I came too," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't sure I belonged here, but I'm glad I did." William reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "You belong here," he said firmly. "And you belong with me." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected those words, hadn't expected to hear him say that. She looked at him, searching his eyes for any hint of insincerity, but there was none. He was looking at her like she mattered, like she was important. And for the first time in a long time, Anna allowed herself to believe it. Maybe this wasn't just a mistake after all. Maybe this was something real. The night ended with a soft kiss, the kind that lingered in the air, leaving her heart racing as she watched him walk away. Anna wasn't sure where this was going, but she knew one thing for certain. Something had shifted between them, and she couldn't deny that she wanted to find out what would come next. The days following the gala felt like a dream. Anna couldn't quite wrap her head around everything that had happened. She had spent the night in William's company, and the connection between them had only deepened. What had started as a simple invitation to an event had turned into something far more meaningful, something Anna wasn't sure she was ready for. She tried to keep herself grounded, focusing on her job at the diner, but her mind kept drifting back to William. It wasn't just the way he looked at her or the way he had made her feel at ease in a world that was so far removed from her own. It was the sincerity in his eyes, the way he had said those words to her at the gala. "You belong here, and you belong with me." It echoed in her mind, and for the first time, She allowed herself to imagine what life could be like if she took the leap. Would it be possible for someone like her, someone with so little, to fit into his world? As the days passed, William and Anna continued to talk, their conversations becoming more frequent, more personal. They spent time together, sometimes just walking around the city, other times sitting in quiet cafes, sharing stories about their lives. William opened up to her in ways he had never done before. He confessed that, despite his success, he often felt lonely, disconnected from the people around him. The weight of being a CEO, the expectations of his family, and the constant pressure of his career had made it difficult for him to trust people. But with Anna, it was different. She didn't see him as the powerful man everyone else did. She saw him as William, a man who wanted more than just business meetings and high-end events. Anna, in turn, found herself opening up to him. She told him about her dreams of starting her own art studio, how she had always wanted to create something meaningful, something that could make a difference. She shared the struggles she had faced growing up, how she had learned to be independent, to rely on herself, because no one else had ever really been there for her. William listened to her, really listened, and in his presence, she felt like she could finally be herself, without any pretense or fear of judgment. As their bond grew stronger, Anna began to feel like maybe she was ready for something more, something she had never allowed herself to believe in before, love. But at the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in his world. She was just a waitress, living paycheck to paycheck, with no fancy clothes or connections. How could someone like him, someone so successful, be interested in someone like her? These doubts kept creeping in, and Anna couldn't ignore them. She started pulling back a little, not responding to his messages as quickly, making excuses to avoid meeting up. She told herself it was better this way. If she kept things casual, she wouldn't get hurt. But William wasn't giving up that easily. He noticed the change in her behavior and decided to confront it. One evening, as they were having dinner at a small restaurant, he looked at her seriously. "Anna, what's going on?" he asked. "I feel like you've been pulling away from me lately. Did I do something wrong?" Anna felt her heart race. She had been avoiding this conversation, but now that it was here, she couldn't pretend anymore. She looked down at her plate, gathering her thoughts. "It's not you," she said softly. "It's me. She stopped, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. William reached across the table, gently lifting her chin so she had to look at him. "You don't have to be afraid," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I'm not going anywhere, Anna. I care about you. I want to be with you." Anna felt a lump form in her throat. She had never been good at trusting people, and the idea of opening up completely terrified her. But as she looked into his eyes, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it was worth taking the risk. "I'm scared," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't belong in your world. I don't have the things you're used to, the things people like you are supposed to have. I'm just me." William's expression softened, and he reached for her hand, holding it gently in his. "Anna," he said, "I don't care about any of that. I care about you. And that's all that matters." Tears welled up in Anna's eyes as she squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of her fears start to lift. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe in what they had. Maybe they weren't from the same world, but that didn't mean they couldn't build something together. She took a deep breath and smiled. "I want to try," she said, her voice filled with newfound courage. William smiled back, and for the first time in a long while, Anna felt like she had found something real, something worth holding on to. And in that moment, she knew that no matter where this journey took them, they would face it together. The days following their conversation felt like a shift in Anna's life. She was no longer just a waitress trying to get by. She was someone with hope, with a chance at something more. The doubts that had clouded her mind slowly began to dissipate, replaced with a sense of trust she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. William's words echoed in her mind. "I care about you. And that's all that matters." For the first time in a long time, Anna believed him. It wasn't easy for her to open up, to let someone see the vulnerable parts of her, but with William, it felt different. He wasn't asking for anything but her honesty, her trust, and that made all the difference. They spent the following weeks getting to know each other even more deeply. William took Anna to art galleries, introducing her to his world, but also immersing himself in hers. He listened to her talk about her dreams of having her own art studio, of turning her passion into something more. He was fascinated by her creativity, her vision. It was a side of her she had always kept hidden, buried beneath the weight of life's responsibilities. But with him, she felt safe enough to share it. Anna, in turn, spent more time with him in his world, at charity events, business dinners, and quiet nights at his penthouse. She found herself enjoying the side of him that wasn't all business, the moments when he wasn't the CEO, but just William, the man who loved art and simple pleasures. The more she learned about him, the more she realized how much they had in common. Despite their differences in background, they were both looking for the same thing, genuine connection. As they grew closer, the line between their two worlds began to blur. Anna found herself at home in places she once thought she didn't belong, and William found peace in moments of quiet intimacy, away from the constant demands of his life. But as much as Anna was starting to embrace the idea of their relationship, she couldn't ignore the fear that still lingered. The fear that this was all too good to be true, that sooner or later, reality would catch up with them. She couldn't help but wonder if she was just a temporary distraction for him, someone who was exciting in the moment but would eventually be left behind when the demands of his world became too much. One evening, as they were sitting on the balcony of his penthouse, watching the city lights twinkle below, William turned to her. "I know you're still scared," he said softly. "I can see it in your eyes. But I want you to know something. I'm not going anywhere, Anna. I want you in my life, and I'm not going to let you go." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had never heard him speak so openly, so vulnerably. She had spent so much time hiding from the possibility of real love, convinced it wasn't something she deserved. But here he was, telling her that he wanted her, all of her, without hesitation. "I'm scared too," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to trust that this is real." William reached for her hand, his touch gentle yet reassuring. "You don't have to know all the answers, Anna," he said. "You just have to take it one step at a time. We don't have to have it all figured out right now. What matters is that we're here, together, and we're willing to make this work." Anna felt tears well up in her eyes. For the first time, she let go of the walls she had built around her heart. She leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his embrace. In that moment, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Slowly, things began to fall into place. Anna started to see a future she had never imagined for herself. She applied for grants to fund her art studio and began working on her first pieces. William supported her every step of the way, attending art shows with her and offering advice when she needed it. They were building a life together, one step at a time, and it felt like the start of something beautiful. The fear that had once held her back began to fade as she realized that love, real love, wasn't about perfection or fitting into someone's world. It was about finding someone who accepted you as you were, someone who wanted to build a life with you, no matter where you came from or what you had. One afternoon, as they walked through a park together, William stopped and turned to her. "I have something to ask you," he said, his voice full of emotion. Anna looked at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked. William reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. He opened it to reveal a beautiful diamond ring. "Anna, will you marry me?" he asked, his voice filled with sincerity. Tears filled Anna's eyes as she looked at the man who had changed her life, who had shown her that love could be real, that it wasn't just a fairy tale. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." As William slipped the ring onto her finger, Anna knew that her life was about to change forever. This was the beginning of their forever, and together, they would build something beautiful, something they had both always dreamed of. The days following the engagement were a blur for Anna, filled with excitement, nervousness, and a growing sense of anticipation. She still couldn't quite believe it. She was marrying William Harding, the man who had once been a stranger to her, the man who had changed her life in ways she never thought possible. Every day felt like a dream, but with each passing moment, the reality of their relationship began to settle in. The wedding planning was overwhelming at times, but William was right there by her side, helping her with every detail. They had talked about a small ceremony, something intimate, just their closest family and friends. Anna had never imagined her wedding would be like this, elegant, beautiful, and beyond anything she had ever thought she deserved. As they walked through the park one afternoon, hand in hand, She looked at William, her heart swelling with affection. She had never felt this kind of peace before, this sense of certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. "Are you sure you want to do this?" William asked, his voice gentle as he glanced down at her, his eyes filled with love. Anna smiled up at him, her eyes sparkling. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "I'm more sure than I've ever been about anything in my life." William smiled back, his heart full. "Good," he said, his voice warm. "Because I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you." As the wedding day approached, Anna found herself growing more and more excited, but also a little nervous. She had never been the center of attention, and the thought of standing in front of everyone, making promises for the rest of her life, was a little overwhelming. But every time she looked at William, all her fears seemed to melt away. He had been there for her through everything, always patient, always kind, and now, he was asking her to be his forever. The morning of the wedding arrived, and Anna woke up early, her heart racing with anticipation. She stood in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back at her, and for a moment, she couldn't believe how far she had come. A year ago, she never would have imagined that she would be here, getting married to a man like William, a man who saw her for who she truly was, not just the waitress who served coffee, but the woman with dreams, with a future. As she slipped into her wedding dress, the weight of it all hit her, but in the best possible way. She wasn't just walking into a new chapter of her life. She was walking into a future she had never thought possible. Her heart fluttered as she thought about William, about the life they would build together, and all the love they had shared in such a short time. The ceremony was everything Anna had dreamed of and more. The venue was a beautiful garden, surrounded by flowers and greenery, with soft music playing in the background. William looked stunning in his tuxedo, his eyes locked on her as she walked down the aisle. For a moment, it felt like time stood still. The world around them faded, and all that mattered was the two of them, standing in front of each other, ready to take the next step in their journey together. As Anna reached the altar, William took her hand, his touch warm and comforting. "I'm so glad you're here," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise, I will love you for the rest of my life." Anna smiled through the tears that had started to form in her eyes. "I promise the same," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The vows they exchanged were simple, but filled with so much meaning. It wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about the love they had built together, the trust they had developed, and the commitment they were making to each other. When the ceremony was over, they were officially married, and the world seemed to shift. It felt like a new beginning, not just for Anna and William, but for both of them as individuals, as a couple, and as a family. Their reception was a celebration of love, laughter, and joy. Their closest friends and family gathered to congratulate them, to share in their happiness, and to witness the start of their new life together. As the night wore on, Anna and William shared their first dance as husband and wife. The music played softly, and they held each other close, the world around them fading away. "I never thought I'd be here," Anna whispered, her head resting on his shoulder. "I never thought I deserved this." William pulled back slightly to look at her, his eyes filled with love. "You deserve everything, Anna," he said softly. "You are everything to me." Anna smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. In that moment, she realized just how much she had changed. She had gone from being unsure of herself, from doubting her worth, to standing in front of the man she loved, knowing that she was exactly where she was meant to be. This was just the beginning of their journey together, and as she looked into William's eyes, she knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. As the night came to an end and they walked out into the cool evening air, hand in hand, Anna felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had found love in the most unexpected place, and now, she was ready to begin the rest of her life with William by her side. The first few months of marriage felt like a dream for Anna and William, the kind of dream where everything seemed to fall into place. Their life together was better than Anna had ever imagined, filled with moments of happiness, love, and the kind of peace she had never experienced before. William was everything she had hoped for and more. He was attentive, caring, and always there when she needed him. Their connection had deepened in ways Anna hadn't expected. They had their own routine now, balancing their busy lives with quiet evenings spent at home. William had continued to support Anna's dream of opening her art studio, and she was making progress, getting closer to the reality she had once only dared to dream of. It was a dream that she had put on hold for so long, but with William by her side, it finally felt possible. She was able to rent a small space, and soon, she would be opening her studio to the public. It wasn't easy, of course, and there were times when Anna questioned if she was making the right choice. The pressure to succeed was always there, but William's belief in her was a constant source of encouragement. He often visited her studio, sitting quietly in the corner while she worked, offering advice when asked, but mostly just being there, supporting her. And as her studio began to take shape, so did their relationship. There were still moments of doubt, moments where Anna questioned her worth, where she wondered if she truly belonged in William's world. She was still the same girl from the diner, the same girl who had struggled to make ends meet, and sometimes, it felt like she didn't deserve the life she was now living. But every time those thoughts crept in, William was there to remind her that she belonged with him, that she was more than enough just as she was. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their apartment, watching the city lights below, Anna turned to William. "Do you ever feel like this is all too good to be true?" she asked softly, her voice carrying the weight of her thoughts. William looked at her, his gaze steady and unwavering. "No," he replied simply. "I know it's real. I know that you and I, we're meant to be together. It's not perfect, but it's perfect for us." Anna smiled at him, feeling the warmth of his words wash over her. It was a reminder that they had come a long way, that despite the differences in their backgrounds, despite the challenges they had faced, they had built something real, something that could withstand anything. "I love you," Anna whispered, her voice full of emotion. William reached for her hand, holding it gently. "I love you too, more than you'll ever know," he said, his voice thick with affection. And in that moment, Anna realized that the doubts, the fears, they no longer mattered. She had found something far more important than she had ever hoped for. True love, unconditional and unwavering. But life, as they both knew, was not without its challenges. Even though their relationship was strong, there were moments when they were tested, when life threw curveballs their way. One evening, William came home from work looking more stressed than usual. He sat down at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. Anna sat across from him, concerned. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice gentle but filled with worry. William sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's work," he said, his voice strained. "There's a new project, and the pressure is overwhelming. I feel like I'm losing control of everything." Anna reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "You don't have to do it alone," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I'm here for you always." William looked up at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I know you are," he said quietly. "But sometimes, I feel like I'm letting everyone down. My team, my family, you." Anna shook her head. "You don't have to carry it all," she said. "We're a team, remember? You don't have to be perfect." William looked at her, his expression softening. "You always know what to say," he said with a small smile. Anna smiled back, squeezing his hand. "I love you," she whispered again. "And I'm here for you, no matter what." Over the next few days, William worked through the pressure at work, but he leaned on Anna more than ever before. She knew that, no matter how tough things got, they could face it together. And slowly, the tension began to ease, as they both found a way to balance their lives, their dreams, and the love they had for each other. There would always be challenges ahead, but Anna had no doubt that with William by her side, they could overcome anything. Their life together had only just begun, but it was already more than she had ever imagined. They had built a life filled with love, trust, and a deep connection, and it was something that no one and nothing could ever take away. As the months passed, Anna and William continued to build their life together. Their relationship had evolved into something deeper, something both of them had never expected. The fears and doubts that had once clouded Anna's mind now felt distant, as she came to understand that love, real love, wasn't about perfection or fitting into someone else's world. It was about accepting each other's flaws and supporting one another through life's challenges. William had always been her rock, but now, she was becoming his as well. They both had their moments of vulnerability, but they had learned how to face them together, stronger than before. One afternoon as they sat in the park, enjoying the quiet of the day, Anna looked at William, a smile tugging at her lips. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with wonder. William smiled back at her, his hand resting gently on hers. All the time, he said, his voice filled with emotion. I still can't believe we're here, you and me, building this life together. I never imagined this kind of happiness, not even in my wildest dreams. Anna squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with affection. It hasn't been easy, she said, her voice thoughtful. We've had our share of struggles, but I wouldn't change a thing. I feel like we're exactly where we're supposed to be. William nodded, his eyes softening as he looked at her. I agree, he said. Every challenge we've faced has only made us stronger, and I'm proud of what we've built. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, simply enjoying each other's company. Life had a way of surprising them, of taking them places they never thought they would go, but now, with each passing day, they both felt more certain that their journey was just beginning. The weeks continued to fly by, and Anna's art studio was beginning to thrive. She had opened its doors to the public, and the response had been overwhelming. People were drawn to her work, her passion, and her story. She had found a community of people who believed in her, and that was more than she had ever imagined. William was there every step of the way, attending her shows, offering feedback when asked, and always reminding her of how incredible she was. He never let her doubt herself, always encouraging her to reach for her dreams. As Anna's confidence grew, so did their bond. They spent more time together, not just as husband and wife, but as partners, each helping the other reach their full potential. But as much as they had achieved, life still had its share of challenges. One afternoon, as they were discussing their future plans, William looked at Anna, his expression serious. I've been thinking, he said, his voice calm but filled with concern. We've been so focused on our individual dreams that I think we've forgotten to talk about what comes next for us as a couple. I want to make sure we're on the same page, that we're both still heading in the same direction. Anna felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. It wasn't like William to be so serious, and she wondered if there was something he was concerned about. What do you mean? She asked, her voice soft. William took a deep breath, his gaze steady as he met her eyes. I love everything we've built, he said slowly, but I want to make sure we're not losing sight of each other in the process. I don't want us to get so caught up in work, in our individual goals, that we forget what brought us together in the first place. I want to make sure we're still growing together, not just apart. Anna's heart skipped a beat, and she reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. I feel the same way, she said, her voice filled with emotion. I've been so focused on my studio, on making my dreams come true, that I've neglected to think about how we can continue to grow together. But I don't want to lose what we have. I want to make sure we're always on the same path, side by side. William smiled, his expression softening as he looked at her. I'm glad you feel that way, he said, his voice warm. Because no matter where life takes us, I want you to know that you are my priority. We've already built something incredible together, and I want to keep building, but I want us to do it as a team, every step of the way. Anna smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She had feared that their success might pull them in different directions, but hearing William's words reassured her. They were a team, and they always would be. I agree, she said softly. I want to grow with you, not just in business but in life. Together, we can do anything. William leaned in and kissed her gently on the forehead. Together, he repeated, his voice filled with certainty. And in that moment, Anna realized that no matter what came next, they would face it together. Whatever the future held, they had each other, and that was all they needed. Their journey was far from over, but it was theirs to write, side by side, hand in hand. As the years passed, Anna and William's life together continued to unfold in ways they never expected. The challenges they had faced along the way had only strengthened their bond, and each day brought new opportunities for growth, both as individuals and as a couple. Anna's art studio had become a thriving success, a testament to her hard work, talent, and the unwavering support of William. She had achieved more than she had ever thought possible, and with each new project, her confidence grew. She no longer saw herself as the girl from the diner, but as an artist in her own right, with her own voice and vision. But it wasn't just her career that was flourishing. Her relationship with William had become deeper and more meaningful with each passing day. They had built a life together that was filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. They supported each other through every challenge, celebrated each success, and faced every uncertainty as a team. William continued to work hard, managing his business with the same dedication he had always shown, but he had learned to balance his career with his personal life. No longer was he consumed by the pressures of his job. He had found a way to make time for the things that mattered most. And for him, Anna was at the top of that list. As they celebrated their anniversary one evening, sitting together on the balcony of their home, William looked at Anna, his eyes filled with love and gratitude. "I can't believe it's been this long," he said, his voice soft, but filled with emotion. "It feels like just yesterday we were standing at that gallery, trying to figure out if this was really happening. But now, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Anna smiled, her heart swelling with affection. "I feel the same way," she said. "I never thought I could have this kind of happiness, but you've made me believe in it. You've shown me that love isn't just a fairy tale. It's real, and I'm so grateful for everything we've built together." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the city lights twinkle below them. The world had changed around them, but they had remained steady, grounded in their love for each other. And that was all that mattered. Their journey together had not been easy, but it had been beautiful. They had faced their fears, their doubts, and their insecurities, but together, they had come out stronger, more connected, and more in love. And now, as they looked ahead, they knew that the future was theirs to create. They had built something incredible together, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a team. "Here's to us," William said, raising his glass in a toast. "To the life we've created and the one we're still building." Anna raised her glass in response, her smile full of love. "To us," she said. And in that moment, they both knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand, always and forever. The life they had built was just the beginning of their journey, and with each other by their side, they were ready for whatever came next.